everyone! Today we're talking about the Inspector Gadget reboot from 2015 because I absolutely love it. It's just so zany and campy and ridiculous. Specifically, I'm partial to Dr. Claw's unhinged plots. Dr. Claw is definitely one of my favorite villains ever. And at least in my mind, the best things about his character are the convoluted and ridiculous evil plots that he concocts in pretty much every episode. So much so that even in one episode where he intends on creating an overly complicated plan.
86-step plan. Order 1 trillion chocolate bars. Step 1B. Go to the zoo and steal all their hawks. Step 1C. Train the hawks to unwrap and sort the trillion chocolate bars into piles of milk chocolate and dark chocolate.
It still ends up being only slightly more deranged than usual. I was originally going to have this list be a top 10, but I found it super hard to narrow it down, so it's a top 15. So the inspiration of this video comes from my dad. Last week I was talking to him about Dr. Claw's plots, and we were both laughed at how silly they are. He then pointed out, maybe jokingly, that this would be a great topic for a video. And that inspired me to rewatch the series for like the billionth time, and write down all of Dr. Claw's plots. So you could say this video is my interpretation of that list. No knowledge of Inspector Gadget is necessary to enjoy this video, and there's no real plot to the show in general, so I guess you wouldn't really be getting any spoilers by watching this video besides knowing what Claw is going to be doing in some episodes. Now, let's get to it! Coming out at the bottom is the Fountain of Cortez. In this episode, Claw decides to steal all the water from the Fountain of Youth so he can turn everyone in the world into annoying babies because babies are annoying. Here we get an episode where Claw is doing something typically inexplicable. He has absolutely nothing to gain from this scheme, like nothing at all. I more or less believe that this would actually have a negative effect on Claw, so this plan is totally nonsense. A slight benefit that I guess Claw hopes would come from this is that his mom will no longer pester him to give her grandbabies, because those babies, I guess, would function as her grandchildren. Mind you, she already has a grandson, Talon, and she probably would be turned into a baby as well. Moving on. Breaking Bad. Now we're getting into the more ludicrously complex plots. In this episode, Claw buys too much of this universe's Girl Scout cookies because he can't resist them when the Girl Scouts come to his door. Because of this, he decides to steal invisibility spray from HQ so he can hide his lair from the Girl Scouts. Yes, that's his only motive. Although this is very strange, it isn't particularly harmful to anyone, so I don't deem it as unhinged as the plots further up on the list. Ice Ice Yeti. He is probably the only example ever of someone causing global warming to immediately and directly benefit themselves. Because obviously global warming could never possibly benefit anyone except Claw. This plot consists of Claw having Talon continuously run in a giant hamster wheel to power a heat machine designed to melt the polar ice caps. This in turn would raise his sea level so he can park his new yacht at the back door of his lair instead of at the marina, which is a whole 10 minutes away. Mind you, he also wants this done in a few hours, so fake it till you make it. Next we got something that legit hurts absolutely no one, but is still illegal and frankly bizarre. So, Claw's favorite show, Downton Abbey, which is a running gag throughout the series, has the season finale end on a cliffhanger. Claw is obviously very impatient and wants to immediately know what happens to his favorite characters. Talon kindly suggests that Claw just kidnap the writers of the show, which Claw immediately dismisses because apparently the writers know nothing. Therefore, he instead needs Talon to kidnap the Oracle of Delphi so he can know what happens before anybody else. Unfortunately for him, not only does he never actually get to kidnap the Oracle, but she tells Talon that the show is going to be cancelled. So it's a double downer for the poor good doctor. Dog show days are over. Now we got something so ridiculous I'm not even sure I can do it justice, which in and of itself is quintessentially Claw. So due to Claw's hatred of dogs, he sends Mad Cat disguised as a dog and wearing hypnotism goggles and Talon undercover to compete in a dog show. Then, Mad Cat will hypnotize all the dogs so she can win and get on TV, which will allow her to hypnotize all the dogs watching at home. Yes, this is his exact scheme. He assumes that dogs are actually watching the dog show, which even in the show's universe is pretty far-fetched. Then he will lead all the hypnotized dogs to a remote farm that he purchased. The reason for all this? When Claw was a baby, a dog stole his candy. So by doing this, dogs will never be able to steal his candy again? Sounds right. You know the drill. Here we're continuing with the theme of world destruction just to make a more convenient world for Claw. However, I'd say this plan is so misconceived that it would be more likely to kill Claw than actually benefit him. And the fact that this plan in all likelihood would kill Claw before it kills anybody else makes it among his most absurd. So here he decides that because of burnt out volcano layers are so 20 years ago, his ice castle lair is trendy. However, because it is so cold, he has Talon use a giant drill to reroute the world's lava from the Earth's core to his lair to heat it. Molten lava to heat an ice castle lair? Even my Claw standards, I'm not sure he put enough thought into this one. Lost in the lost city of Atlantis. In this episode, Claw decides that he's going to create a city called Clawtonia, and that it'll be the greatest city in the world. However, to do this, he needs to find a way to sink all the greatest cities in the world first, so Clawtonia will be the best by default. Which I guess is one way to go about it. So of course he sends Talon on a mission to discover why Atlantis sank. Makes perfect sense to me. Next, we got Tool Russia with Love. So in this episode, another villain says that Claw's henchmen smell funky, which, needless to say, he finds offensive. Therefore, he needs to get the uniform steam cleaned. And like the rational person that Claw is, he decides that the only reasonable way to do this would be to fill an active volcano with water to create steam. In actuality, pouring water directly onto lava would likely result in a violent explosion, killing Claw and anyone else in the vicinity pretty much instantly. So once again, Claw is mainly a threat to himself. I just can't with this. The Gadgetator. We're at absolute convoluted madness here. So there's a wrestling tournament that's awarding a wrestling belt made out of obscurium, the shiniest metal on Earth. Claw decides to send in a wrestler ringer to win it because flat out stealing it would be far too easy. After he obtains the wrestling belt, he plans to put it onto his reflecting dish so he can light up the moon and make it permanently a full moon. Why would this benefit him, you might ask? Well, by doing that, the human race would be so sleep deprived that he can take over the world. At least all the people without window shades. And because this is Claw we're talking about, he adds in the included benefit that werewolves would never be able to turn back when he succeeds. Because naturally, that's a priority. Mad money. Now we got the definition of more money, more problems. So Claw's lair is filled to the brim with money, which means everyone has to sleep on cash and they can't see out of the windows. Therefore, to combat this dilemma, as well as the problem of destroying Metro City and HQ, he decides to build a robot made out of gold and precious gemstones to level the city. Which I guess is one way to take care of excessive wealth. Game over, man. Now we're on to the top 5, so we're getting somewhere. This is the first episode to feature a truly bizarre Claw plan. In it, Claw decides that he's going to attach a giant magnifying glass to the International Space Station because this will allow him to burn a hole into the Grand Canyon to turn it into an even grander canyon that he'll rename the Grand Clawnion, obviously. Unsurprisingly, Talon questions this plan, suggesting that Claw simply threatened to use the magnifying glass in exchange for $1 zillion. Claw's response? What would he possibly need that for? Classic Claw. Pyramid scheme. This episode is the epitome of bad planning. Claw is angry that the evil lair he built in a sphinx in Egypt has its view obstructed by the pyramids of Giza, so he has Talon hold up a picture of an unobscured view. However, he then gets the bright idea to sink all the pyramids into the ground so he can have a clear view. I mean, I guess that's easier than just relocating your lair to somewhere with a better view of the desert, I guess. Cuckoo for Talon. In this episode, Claw decides that because he keeps oversleeping, he will build an alarm inside of Big Ben that's loud enough to wake him up. And flat in London. Mind you, I'm pretty sure he's in Canada in this episode, so Big Ben is a pretty odd choice for an alarm. To me, this plan is the definition of unhinged. However, it's somehow not nearly as batty as the top two, so it's relegated to third place. Ticked off. In retrospect, freezing every attendee of the really important meeting for really important world leaders is a pretty solid plan, I guess. If your plan is world domination, at least. Until someone figures out how to thaw them out. But none of that matters, because Dr. Claw's only objective is to have a life-size snow globe to add to his prized collection. So yeah, this is just insane. Under the mad night sun. Let's end this list with a classic. I mean, sure, I didn't even remember this episode until I was rewatching this series for this video, but this plot is definitely classic Claw in the most convoluted and insane way possible. So Claw decides that the best money-making scheme is to build condos underground and force people to live in them. How will he make this happen, you ask? By stealing an element called magstinium, the most magnetic element on Earth, and using it to power his magnetic field magnetizer, of course. The magnetic field magnetizer will get rid of the Earth's magnetic field, causing the sun's rays to scorch the Earth, forcing everybody to go underground to survive. At this point, they will clearly have no choice but to obey his every command, right? I have zero idea why the people would need to obey his every command. Maybe because he's the only person to have underground real estate? And there we have it. This list is really tough to narrow down because they're all just so ridiculous. Let me know if you agree with my list, and feel free to share any of your favorites that I didn't cover in the comment section below. They'll definitely be covered at a future date. Bye!